part of the poor governance capacity inherited from the ANC. The idea was to build an internal capacity of the city to ensure effective project management and better value for money. Let me break it down what we mean. So when we came in, the Auditor General says you have over 10 billion rand of projects that either have been completed, not handed over back to the city. You have projects that are not completed that have run out of money. You have projects that are still have money, not completed, but are stolen because of the issues of the community preventing the projects from continuing, or projects that really have to be abandoned because they have been, from the project management perspective, from the onset, the conceptualization of that has been wrong. So the Auditor General said these will forever be findings unless if you are able to then correct that. We then said to the city manager, what is then the best possible way that we'll be able to deal with this? The city manager said to us, well, we don't have the internal capacity for us to be able to then deal with this kind of projects. Therefore, the best thing that we now need to do is to make sure that we are able to then outsource the project management of these, and to ensure that when you are doing that, you are also able to then at the same time begin to build capacity, so that you then have capacity in the relevant departments going forward. So we looked at over 1,400 projects that the Auditor General referred to in his report, and we said we needed to make sure that this is corrected. Documents of which will be provided to you. One of the documents that the ANC selectively uses without giving a shred of evidence to say that all information had been shared or has been shared with ourselves. We'll make sure that that document is then provided to yourself. In November 2017, I was made aware of a panel of service providers that had been appointed to assist the project management unit, but no name of any individual service provider was provided by the city manager. The city manager never reported on contract amounts, percentage or limits or detailed work specifications. At the time, the officials who have been asked to be protected raised concerns about service level agreements that were asked to approve by the city manager. The officials feared that the service level agreement might be biased against the city. They were advised to put their concerns in writing to the city manager. At this time, there were no concrete allegations or tender rigging, and my office had not been finished with the adverse legal and financial comments that had apparently been rendered prior to the award of the tender. Furthermore, several senior officials who raised concerns about the legality and the impact of the tender allegedly that they were threatened and intimidated by the city manager. It is important to remember that this remains an obligation upon us to protect the whistleblowers from occupational detriment as required under the Protection Disclosure Act. So again, I must re-emphasize, this remains allegations, and this is why we've called for an investigation, so that all of these things can indeed be put to light. In March 2018, I was furnished with a copy of a legal opinion and the account of the whistleblower, suggesting that the city manager had ignored the legal advice in appointing the project management service providers. By this time, nothing had been said or cited in the supply chain management report about the appointment of the project management service providers. This is when I sought legal advice to investigate the allegations as being made by the whistleblowers. At about the same time, this MMC for RE asked in her own capacity as the MMC for Finance questions from the chief to the Chief Financial Officer Umar Banda about the appointment of the project management service providers. At the time, she was acting as the executive mayor, but also still exercising her ordinary oversight role over supply chain management issues as the finance MMC. When Dr. Musola came to hear of MMC for his queries, he responded with an unusual hostility. In an email, he accused her of conducting an illegal investigation and insisted on being afforded the benefit of rule of natural justice. That is something that we did. We said, well, we will compile a number of questions, and then we will then ask you to then be able to explain to us indeed what has been happening there. The appointment of the panel of project management service providers was eventually reported by the city manager to MACO and to council in May 2018. But by then, the matter was already under investigation. The third quarter supply chain management report indicated no contract price, no percentage or limit or detailed work specifications. Neither was a service provider named in the report. The following was contained in addendum to the report, which will also make sure that it's available to yourself. I quote, EXCO, MECO, and Council attention was also drawn to the Regulation 32 procurement of services under contract by another organ of state as follows in the September 2017 and reported during the period, close quote. Now the track record of our DA-led administration shows how hard we have worked to get the Tshwane back on track. It shows how much we have put in place, and the track record will indeed speak for itself. And whatever happens on Thursday, history will indeed judge us accordingly. We have fought very much to combat and expose corruption and maladministration, and we've begun to ensure that better service delivery is delivered to the people. To date, we have been able to stabilize the city of Tshwane's finances. It must also be remembered that the city was also on the brink of bankruptcy when we took over. By strengthening controls over supply chain processes, slashing unauthorized and unnecessary expenditure, and extricating the city from unlawful and expensive contracts which benefited the politically connected that was under the administration of the ANC. This, as I said before, in particular respect of the biggest single item of ANC corruption in local government history, the Peo Smart Meter contract valued at over 2 billion rand. The DA-led administration, together with the civil society, were successful in convincing the courts to set aside and bringing us closer to providing affordable electricity to our people. Other contracts entered into the ANC maladministration that the Msimanga administration currently challenged, including the West Capital project. Now, you cannot do anything relating to Shuart Park because of the contract that the city finds itself in under the ANC administration. What happened is that if you move now from Shuart Park all the way to Atteridgeville, every piece of land, the grave, Marawastad precinct there, the fresh produce market, all have been signed over to one company. Now we want to develop there. We cannot do that because of the corruption that has taken place. And all of this at the rate of what? 1 rand a year. They're paying 1 rand a year. And these are some of the contracts that we find ourselves in, and we now need to make sure that we correct those. We've spoken about the fleet contract that also has been taken under review. Let's not forget the broadband contract, valued at several billions of rands, that we are also now dealing with. Additionally, when the DA assumed office in Tshwane, we were astonished to find that the ANC had made approximately 900 political appointments in the office of the executive mayor, all drawing salaries from the city, which have now been slashed. We sold the mayoral mansion for 5.1 billion rand in order to build houses for the disadvantaged. We've banned the blue lights. We've continued to engage with communities. We've increased and quadrupled the amount of maintenance budget that has been available to ensure that services and better maintenance is given to the people of Tshwane going forward. We reformed the expanded public works program selection and recruitment process, ensuring that it's a fair and transparent system that we now employ, instead of the crony system that has been put in place. The random selection process via lottery system implemented by our DA-led administration gives everyone, and not just the politically connected, an opportunity to benefit from the program. We allocated 137.2 million rands towards the EPWP initiatives this financial year. This will lead to more jobs and skills for the unemployed. The city's health department is currently funding the Department of Home Medicine at the University of Pretoria with development of evidence-based community-oriented substance use program, what we call COSAP. To date, over 2,000 people have benefited and enrolled on the COSAP program, and more than 12,000 follow-up visits were conducted to intensify the interventions. This excludes people who are reached through awareness and education campaign. It is estimated that we have reached over 40,000 people through the outreach program that we have started. Our 24-hour call center also ensures that we are able to reach out, and we have people that reach out to us on a 24-hour basis. The Hope Line, as we call it, takes calls and refers callers for assistance. Hope Line is one of our 5 response interventions to ensure that we fight the scourge of drugs and substance abuse. And I'm pleased to announce that since the launch of the Hope Line, the city of Tshwane has registered increasing number of calls and dealt with all the pleas for people who are seeking for help and the families that are affected therefore. These are some of just the many good stories and successes that can be told by the DA-led administration, which is here to serve the people of Tshwane. And at this point in time, I also want to say thank you to those that have formed the government with us. We want to say thank you to the ACDP, we want to say thank you to COPE, and also we want to say thank you to the Freedom Front who have stood by us and who continue to stand by us. Let's come up to now the issue of the motion of no confidence. I think Thursday's motions of no confidence in me is impeccably inexplainable, if I may call it that. Because since my action has shown my administration's stance on issues of allegations of corruption and wrongdoing, and my seriousness in acting against the possible corruption that is there. So I've taken a stance to say that we need to make sure that we investigate and deal with allegations and make sure that we remain an accountable government. So why a motion of no confidence when somebody has decided to act is now being put up? Serious questions need to be asked about the sponsors of the motion, appreciating that no one is being accused of anything. Why are they resisting scrutiny and accountability in terms of the project management unit that has been put together? Why is there now a question, while we are now saying that there needs to be a further investigation into who was responsible if there is any wrongdoing? Now, if there's no wrongdoing, then the investigation will tell us that there is no wrongdoing. But why then derail? Why then get to suspend or want somebody who's calling for the action that you've been calling for to be then removed from office? Unless, if indeed, there is something to be hidden here. And why are they now colluding to ensure that the ANC gets to get into power via the back door? The question is this here. What is the game plan? We'll tell you what the game plan is. Either somebody gets elected from the opposition to lead the opposition, or then they want to push that there is no mayor in place so that it gets to a point where the province, which is ANC, gets to then assume government. So that is the real reason why all these things are being done here. Because if it's indeed about accountability, here we are. We're demonstrating accountability by putting everything on the table and ensuring that we're calling for investigation to take place. This aversion to clean and accountable governance was only displayed in Nelson Mandela Bay yesterday, where again the EFF colluded with the ANC to take power from the DA-led coalition, and only strengthening my call to have the matter urgently and independently investigated. The latest political tactics by the ANC calling for fresh elections is fundamentally undemocratic, considering that the people of Tshwane in the 2016 local government elections already elected a government of their choice and voted the ANC out of power. Granted, not with a clear majority, but they told them, we don't want you in power anymore. The residents of Tshwane gave a mandate for the DA and other opposition parties to form a coalition government to better govern the city and to deliver quality services to its residents. The ANC has nothing more than a track record of bad governance and corruption to show for the time in governing Tshwane. If the EFF choose to collude with the ANC in their motion of no confidence, it will be a clear demonstration that they support and stand by corruption and wrongdoing. I stand undeterred by the motion of no confidence. I will face it, as I've faced so many challenges in the past. I will uncover wrongdoing and take action without fear or favor, a practice which is alien to the ANC, which has built itself on graft and corruption. While the ANC and the EFF attempts to destabilize the legitimate and democratically established government in our metros, we will continue to do our work of bringing tangible change to the people of Tshwane until such time as that changes. That is the end of the statement. I will then allow, at this point in time, questions, if there are any questions, to clarify the matter. Sir?
Mayor, you say that the EFF wants to put the ANC through the back door in the governance in Tshwane. Many may argue that you yourself got into the seat that you are sitting right now through the back door with the deal that you reached with the EFF to vote with them on an issue-to-issue basis. Then my question to you would be, was there any backroom arrangements that were made between you and the EFF in relation to city contracts of housing and infrastructure that has now gone sour with you going after Dr. Mosola, whom you headhunted to become the city manager of Tshwane? Thank you.
Okay.
Matt, Alex Smith, just want to know, have you crunched the numbers? If they vote against you on Thursday, will you survive or not? Have you done the math?
Okay.
Just like something else, just I want to inquire your relationship with the EFF, your understanding. Where do you think it really went wrong? What did you think? Where do you think, within your opinion, where do you think you missed the relationship, so to speak, you whether against the other? What happened?
Okay. Angela?
Hajra from Power 987. Mayor, you spent a lot of time talking about the ANC. 2 years into your term of office, how many arrests or prosecutions have there been? Number two, you did not mention the EFF by name once. Does that mean you are scared of them? And number three, beyond whatever happens on Thursday in the Tshwane City Council, you are the DA's candidate for Premier in the province for the 2019 elections. Given your seemingly horrible working relationship with the EFF and the unlikelihood that the DA is going to win a majority come the elections, like, what's the game plan? Surely you've got to fix your relationship with the EFF if you hope to govern the province in 2019.
All right, Sam. Let's start with what you asked. Dr. Mosola was not headhunted. Dr. Mosola was part of the initial panel or initial people that applied, initial applicants. What we did is that when we couldn't come up to an initial agreement from the first panel, we then expanded. So Dr. Mosola had already applied by the time, so there was no headhunting of that. I put it on record and you can go and ask Dr. Mosola. The first time that I ever met Dr. Mosola was when he was sitting in front of me when I was interviewing him. That was the first time that I ever met Dr. Mosola. So to say that he was headhunted, no, he wasn't headhunted. I was trying to prove that you can get into, or you can put administrators who are not politically aligned, administrators that are supposed to do the job of administration without bringing politics into their work, and leave politicians to deal with politics. That's what I wanted to do, and that is still my intentions in how we run the city of Tshwane. Now, you asking about sour relations, or if there was any deals that were made. I don't do deals that have to do with procurement. I never do those and will never do that. Now, if there's anything untowards that might have been there, why would I then put an investigation on the table? So we're putting everything on the table so that whatever has happened can be exposed. But I can tell you that there will never be any deal that will be made where politicians are then saying these are deals that should be done behind closed doors, because that will go very, very much against what we said we stand against. Because then it means that you have to manipulate procurement processes in order for you to be able to achieve that particular goal.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. You must remember the reporting that we see on supply chain contracts is after the fact.
Yeah.
In other words, we are nowhere in any capacity involved in specifications, drawing up specifications of contracts, being part of bid adjudication or bid evaluation committees. Not at all. It is done by the administration. All contracts have to be agreed with at the adjudication committee. If it's in excess of 10 million, it goes to the city manager. He signs the appointment letters. We only get a report after the fact of when that contract has been awarded. So that's the only time that we have the opportunity to look not the contract itself, only the principle of what has been sourced. And it is only through information that we are able to ascertain was the process followed correctly, yes or no.
So that is how a clean government runs its affairs. So my PA must now explain to you what he meant when he says that any contract above 200,000, the mayor must sign for it, or the mayor must make sure that he sits on that. So they must explain themselves, and they must explain what has been happening all along. Alex, you've asked, have we done the maths? We have done the maths, and I think if there is going to be a vote to remove me, and the ANC and the EFF vote together, they will succeed in that particular motion. If the ANC decides to abstain, because again, you must remember there's two motions. There's the ANC motion, there's the EFF motion. So will they withdraw one and vote for one, or will they then decide that they're going to vote each to their own? So if that is the case, then it will have very different scenarios. The question then becomes when if they succeed in removing me as the city manager through a motion of no confidence, if they agree, then the next thing is, do they want to then put up a candidate? Will the ANC put up a candidate? Will the EFF put up a candidate? Or will they try and nominate somebody from other opposition parties, or the opposition party, which will be the PAC? Or they will try to find an alternative. I can tell you this without a shadow of doubt. The DA has assured that they stand by the man that they put in office. So the only man that will emerge as a DA candidate again will be Solly Msimanga. So let me also answer Johnny Sai. I think, Johnny, I don't want to speculate about what went wrong in the relations. I've always prided myself in being a consultative leader. I've always ensured that I'm able to consult with all leaders in terms of what we now need to, to do. When we're putting a budget together, even the ANC voted with us on our budget, because we consulted them and said, we need to make sure that the people of Tshwane are put at the center of everything that we do. Therefore, if you're going to bring issues, bring the issues, but if it's not talking to what we're trying to do in terms of serving the people, then I don't want to hear it. And this is how they were able to vote with us when we put the budget together. I've always had engagements with the EFF leadership in terms of the plans, in terms of where we are going. And it came by surprise that, when this particular matter came up, then it was a big concern. It is a big concern to me to say that if my name and the administration that I lead is taking flag on a daily basis in the newspaper, and I'm putting things on the table to say, let's clear it once and for all, then there will be a problem in doing that. There's nobody who said Dr. Musula is guilty. Nobody. All we're saying is put everything on the table, let him be vindicated if he's going to be vindicated. And if there's any wrongdoing, let that be found out. So that we don't have another Sunday paper that comes out and say, in addition to this is what is happening. In addition to that, this is what is happening. Therefore, the DA-led administration is failing. So that's basically what we said. Let's put everything on the table and make sure that our name as a party doesn't continue to be banished in the manner that it has been banished. So if, in me trying to do that is what led to, souring of relations, I think it's a bit unfortunate. Which then goes to what Hajra was asking in terms of me not mentioning the EFF. Well, I have mentioned the EFF. I said if they're going to collude with the ANC. So if they're going to collude with the ANC, remember they've been silent in terms of when the investigation has been. That's why I decided to mention the ANC specifically, because they are the ones who've been making the greatest of noise around this particular issue. But again, like a bipolar somebody, they make noise out there and then go into council, do something else, which then tells you that somewhere, somehow, there must be a collision of lies that needs to be exposed. And then, why are they now dilly-dallying about how this thing needs to be dealt with? No, have it in private. No, don't have it in private. Why? If there's a principal matter to say we need to investigate, let's do that. Let's tell the public of Tshwane what is really happening here. And unfortunately, I've had calls, to say that it looks like what is happening here is actually a political gimmick to make sure that it taints your premier candidacy. And I think, the evidence that is now stacking up against them really builds up to that. So you ask about what arrests have been made. We've laid criminal charges. And by the way, we will be laying more criminal charges. And we are hoping that Dr. Mayepa comes into office, because when this building was built, the initiator of that was part of what they did as an advisor to the mayor at the particular point in time. And there's a number of companies that is involved in that we know of, that we're going to be asking some serious questions as to how they managed to get contracts into the city of Tshwane, and how some of the executive of the ANC at a regional level have been milking the system for the longest of time. And he needs to then come with me to the police station to come and lay criminal charges against some of his colleagues. That is a challenge that I'm putting up to him. Fixing the relationships with the EFF. I think I've always had a cordial relationship with the EFF. And if this was the first time that we ever had to, bump heads, where they felt that I didn't consult them. But I said to them, if I didn't consult you, then put up a statement to say that you stand by me in not suspending the city manager, and that you will then be able to follow through up to the point where the city manager is being cleared of any wrongdoing. They're not willing to do that. So I said, if you're not willing to do that, then it means that my name and that of the administration that I live will continue to take a beating, and I'm not willing to stand for that. I'm willing to put everything on the table and to clear people if they are to be cleared, and then move on from there. The people of Tshwane deserve that. I pride myself in having stood on that principle of ensuring that we can run a transparent and clean system. And that's what we promise the people of Tshwane, and that's what we're going to continue to deliver to the people of Tshwane. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Patricia from the SABC. Mayor, in terms of your relationship with the city manager, going back to that, in this country we work on a rule of innocent until proven guilty. You have just said it yourself that no one has been, found for any wrongdoing. If that is what you stand by, should the city manager then not be sitting next to you and then you defend him because he's part of your team until you actually have enough evidence that suggests that he should be suspended or he's not fit enough to be in your administration?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Swahle Mota from Jacaranda FM. So there's also been reports that the DA in Tshwane is actually divided along racial lines. How confident are you that everybody come Thursday, especially in the DA, will vote for you to assume your position as mayor?
Okay.
Marisa from The Citizen. EM, why do you think the EFF could not wait for the outcome of the investigation before going publicly and saying they will oust you? The reason I'm asking that is when it comes to the irregular appointments or the qualifications of some of the staff, the EFF eventually said, we are not going to comment anymore because the mayor said he will investigate and look into the whole HR process and we will comment after. But why do you think with this matter, they're quick to say, you know what, we want to get rid of you, we're not going to wait for the outcome of the investigation?
Okay. All right. Let's start with the relationship with the city manager. Now, I haven't had any bad blood, or there's no bad blood between me and the city manager. The city manager and my name have been taking a lot of flack relating to this alleged corruption. And this is why we've decided to put it, out there. Now, if there is any allegation, the law is very prescriptive in terms of how you deal with it. It says that if there's a senior manager in the administration, that senior manager be put on suspension pending the outcome of the investigation. So the city manager is actually serving the 7 days in which he's supposed to give us reasons why not to suspend. And I must reiterate again, we haven't said, and we are not here to prosecute anybody. We are here to say, if there's any wrongdoing, let's find it. And if the administration can be cleared out of this, if the city manager specifically can be cleared out of this, then the better. Then we will then reconfirm our position, as we have already said, that we run an effective and clean government. So that is why we had gone the route that we have gone. It's prescribed in law that you have to do that. Sbatle, you asked about the divisions in the DA. As late as yesterday evening, we had a DA caucus, as we normally do every Monday before council. Everybody in the party has pledged their support to say that we will ensure that what we have started we will finish together. Whether we go back into the opposition benches, we'll do that together. There's not going to be a division in the party because we know what we stand for, and it will remain that. We stand for a clean and accountable government. Rory, you asked a very good question. I wish I could give you a straight answer to that. When the EFF marched into my office when we had Mako, they marched in here and demanded that Marita Okam be removed immediately. And we were already acting on that. And Marita was put on leave, and then afterwards, when it was confirmed that there was something wrong, Marita went. And that happened in a very short space of time. So now they say, well, prove that there's something wrong before we can then act. And the question is, how am I going to be able to prove that if we not subject this to investigation? And the only way to subject this to investigation is to make sure that you then take what the law prescribes of you to do, to say, put a senior manager on suspension, deal with the issues, clear him or find him guilty. He's innocent until proven otherwise. His conduct has to be proven, or the conduct of the administration has to be taken through an investigation so that we get to the bottom of it. And that's it. So the ANC now don't have anything to jump up and down about, because they thought that I would do what they normally do. Come up with a commission of inquiry onto a commission of inquiry, try to hide something, try to then say we'll look into the matter and come back to you. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. I took the whole thing and put it on the council table and said let's go into it. Now if that is not accountable government, I don't know what is. And anybody who then tries to stop that, the questions must be asked of them then, to come and account.
You didn't really answer my question. My question was, why do you think EFF is jumping the gun and not waiting for the outcome of the investigation in this case?
Well, I think I answered you in the beginning. I said that is a good question, but I think you're asking the wrong person. I think a straight question should be asked of them to say why, on a particular matter you were quick to jump and actually physically walked into a room and demanded somebody to be removed. And on other matter, you're saying, let's look for evidence. So I think it's a question that is a good question to ask. But at this point in time, I think you're asking the wrong person. I'm not the one who walked into a mayor meeting and demanded somebody be removed. I'm not the one that says to council, produce evidence, while the investigation is actually supposed to prove, whether somebody is guilty or not.
Mayor, are you alluding that there may be some sort of mutually beneficial relationship of finances and contracts between the city manager, Dr. Musola, and the economic freedom fighters who are not demanding his removal like they did with Marita Okam?
Samkelo, and this is why I'm saying to you, the investigation that is supposed to take place, I don't want to speculate or subject people into a court of public opinion. I am saying let there be an investigation. An investigation will determine if there was any wrongdoing. I must tell you, companies are taking a beating right now, unfortunately so, because they might have been involved in this particular issue, wrongly or rightly. That needs to be subjected to a particular investigation, and then things are being cleared as well. So I don't want to then say I'm speculating that this is the case, because then that becomes the narrative. That's not what I want to do, and this is why before talking to the media, I follow process by going to council and saying to council, let's make sure that we do the right thing, and then I can comment. But I think the events then are pushing that I should comment, which is something that I didn't want to do at this particular point in time until the investigation is completed.
Mayor, since you talked about...
You are, sir?
SSH Media.
Okay.
You say your caucus, you had a meeting with your caucus last night, and they're in full support of they are fully behind you. So there's been a leak of caucus screen grabs that were sent to Malema and the EFF. Are you sure that your whole caucus is behind you? And do you think your call to accept premiership has made you a target? And Malema made a statement today and say that they are willing to give DA a chance, but they don't want you. They are willing to give DA a chance if they put forward another candidate.
Okay. I think any journalist who's been, Hajrai will be one of them, who's been in the political game for a very long time, knows that caucus leaks are unusual. It's something that happens. You don't agree with me, you create your own narrative somewhere else, and then it happens in any caucus. So there's nothing new in what what has happened. Whether that will translate into something sinister happening on Thursday, I don't know. I don't think Arthur also knew that or could have predicted that something like what happened in Nelson Mandela Bay would have happened. But be that as it may, we had a meeting as a caucus. There's an agreement, or there is a firm commitment coming from the multi-party caucus, if I may call it that. Not just the DA caucus, the multi-party caucus, because we had a meeting with all our partners in terms of how we're going to proceed on Thursday. And that is the confirmation that is there. Obviously, you become a target when you are posed to rattle a few cages. I mean, my standing as the premier candidate, not only does it affect the ANC in Tshwane, but it affects the ANC as a whole in the whole of Gauteng. And therefore, obviously, then, I will become the target number one. So this comes as no surprise. But I think from the party that has seen it benefiting for me to be in this particular position, there is that support that is coming through. There is also that commitment and confirmation of the commitment to say that we stand behind our men going forward.
Can I add to that? The DA as a party is the organisation that nominates the executive mayoral candidate. And the executive mayoral candidate for the city of Tshwane is Councillor Solly Msimanga. And he remains the candidate of the party for the city of Tshwane.
So if this voted out on Thursday, are you willing to put another candidate forward?
No. This is our candidate. We are not willing to put any other candidate forward.
Hazra.
My last question. You can disagree with me, but it sounds to me like you are not fighting for your job. It sounds to me like you are already sitting on the opposition benches.
No. Hajra, I think I want to make something very, very clear. And this has been the position of the DA from day one. If it means that we have to compromise on our principle, then we'd rather be in opposition. That is the position that has been there from day one. That is the position that I've said even in our caucus, to say that we will not entertain anything that seems to dilute what we stand for. Because the moment you start doing that, then you are going to lose your core voter base. The people that voted for you because you've promised them clean government, the people that voted for you because you said that you'll have a transparent and accountable government. Now, if I am to compromise on that, just for the sake of being in government, then I will be failing those people. And the ones that are also thinking of voting for us. So I'm saying it today. We would rather be in opposition if it means we have to compromise our standpoint. So you don't want to be in government by hook or crook. You want to be in government because there is something that you want to do in government, and that is for the benefit of the people. Rory?
Last one. Did the EFF ever contact you about this irregular tenders? Have you sat with them? Did they ask you to discuss it first?
I had made a file available to the EFF. I had made a file available to the EFF at a local level that says, here are the facts. This is what we are going to make sure that is in council. And by the way, that file has been made available to anybody. You would remember when there was a meeting or a press conference. That file was made available. So that is something that we said, here are the facts. From where I'm sitting, the city manager has given me answers. I'm happy with the answers because it then says a number of things. But I cannot leave it here because there's more allegations that are coming up. And if there's more allegations that are coming up, then it means that there's something deeper than what I'm being told. And if that is the case, let me subject it to investigation. And we've made that available. So there's nothing that is coming up as a surprise or being hidden from anybody. So we now need to then say, the facts have been put on the table, then let's deal with the facts. Chloe, we'll take the last two and that they will wrap up. Chloe and the last three. Chloe and yourself, and then you'll be the last one.
I'm Chloe as well. Mayor Corey from Business Staff. I just wanted to find out when you refer to specifically with the city manager and the Glad Africa contract. You said they didn't mention names and also didn't report on contract amounts, percentages, or limits or detailed work specifications. When were you informed of the actual details of the contract? It's a big tender. And has the specific, I assume you have a specific amount currently on what the actual contract is worth. But when were you informed of this? And well, if not, then how was the contract signed before, especially the finance MMC, if you didn't have insight into that? And just with regards to the statement that the city manager had put out last week after the vote with regards to the appointments, about the staff in your office specifically, will you be acting on that preliminary stuff that he had released? Will you be looking at it? How will you deal with it? Thank you.
Okay, sir.
As a matter from the Solly newspaper. Mine relates to, you said you always had a good relationship with the EFF. But with regards to the suspension or the new suspension of the city manager, they're saying they met to where you, in a way, sort of cleared Musol, where you told them that you were happy with his responses, and they were surprised a day later when a special council meeting was called. And they don't want to be part of something that's illegal. I'd like a comment on that. And another one, because it seems the main issue is how the city manager has been dealt with or treated. Did EFF play any role? Whatever, it could be little, it could be small. Maybe did they put up Mosola's name for him to be appointed? Did they recommend him?
Okay.
Antoine from Pretoria. Did you have any discussions at a national party level with your leader about this matter? It seems as if the motions of no confidence in the past in the PE mayor, Athol Trollip, has been averted following discussions at a national level between your party leader and EFF party leader. Do you know if there has been any discussions on a national level? Have you been part of any such discussions maybe to avert this motion of no confidence?
Okay. Thank you. The Glad Africa appointment. Well, no, let me say the appointment of a project manager to assist with project management of capital projects was done off a tender of a panel of various consultants issued by the Development Bank of South Africa. That is what Regulation 32 in the Supply Chain Management Regulations gives you an opportunity. Gives you an opportunity to use a tender that sits at another organ of state if that is a particular service that you require. So the city manager used Regulation 32 to acquire the panel of project managers that the DBSA had. Off of that panel, the city manager issued, as I understand it, requests for proposals. And according to what he received back, the award was made. Nowhere in this whole process was it was ever reported on any particulars. The principle of a project manager was originally intended to be as and when required. And when you do an as and when required appointments, the contract itself doesn't have a value as such. So the provider of the service performs it as and when you require it. It would appear subsequently that they were used in every single capital project of the city, which has resulted into this amount of money that has already been spent on contract management. And you will understand that if the principle is to say we needed project management assistance to ensure that our projects are completed on time and on contract value, there was a particular role that they had to play. MACO never, and the mayor never, received any particulars of on what basis they were appointed, on what conditions they were appointed, what was the hourly rate that they were appointed on. None of that information was ever made known in any meeting through the mayoral committee or the mayor. Right. It is as I say, it was a value obviously in excess of 10 million rand, so the city manager was the one who awarded that contract. But it is imperative that when you get whistleblowers starting to talk to you about possible irregularities in this process, then it is the responsibility of this government to investigate. And that's what we're trying to do. Let's get to the bottom of what is really on here. And if it's legit, fine. But we have a responsibility to investigate that. So none of the particulars of this particular, not even the name of whoever was appointed, was made known to the executive mayor and the mayoral committee until the third quarter of this year.
All right.
Thank you.
So basically what you get is that you get a panel that is adopted. The panel will consist obviously of a number of service providers. You adopt that as that is. You appoint that as a panel. And only you will have a value once work is actually commissioned. Because that work will come from a department to say we need assistance in this or we need assistance in that. That's how you then begin to attach value into a particular contract. Because it's as and when. So you don't appoint somebody and says, here's 300 million. No. When there's a job that needs to be done, that needs project management capacity, then you are able to then attach value to it.
But if they use them basically for everything, as the MMC has just said, what is the value that you have paid for them up until this moment? Is that something that you can give us?
I can give you.
The amount of work?
Yes, they are appointed as it is in two separate contracts. The one is at the BRT project management unit, and the other one is the general project management unit. Now, between the period of July 20, no, let me start with the other one. The document dates started in July, started in January 2018 was the earliest. On this particular project, the total amount of money that has been spent on GLAD Africa is almost 328 million rand. On the other contract, the total amount of money spent since last year in October, and this would appear to be the BRT contract, is 217 million rand. So in between the project management unit and the BRT project management, the total value is almost 600 million rand. So you will understand that it is a serious issue that requires full investigation.
All right. Mahlangu, you asked about the city manager. How is Musura treated? I'm not too sure if I follow how is Musura treated.
No, because that doesn't seem to be the reason there's a follow-up into the system.
Oh, yes. I don't think that the city manager has been treated any way untowards. As I said, the law is very, very, the Systems Act is very, very clear. There's allegations, you need to investigate. In fact, I'm compelled to take that information to council. And then the Systems Act is also very, very clear. You need to make sure that you suspend. But before suspending, you need to write to the city manager or to the senior official and give them an opportunity to tell you reasons why they shouldn't be suspended, right? So they provide the reasons. I don't make the decision. I then take it to council to say, council, here are the reasons given why not to suspend. And then council then take a decision on whether they're happy with those reasons or they want to proceed with the suspension. So, I'm compelled by law to make sure, by the Systems Act, to make sure that I'm able to then put this in place. So I don't think that, there's been any kind of negative or malice that is going towards the city manager. It's all what I am told to do by the law.
On the EFF saying you met with them prior to the special council meeting and where you told them that you are happy with his explanation?
You must remember there's a number of things that took place. We got the allegations that they were coming up. When the allegations come up, we wrote to the city manager. I wrote to the city manager and said, please give us. By the way, before the ANC even jumped on the matter, we had already even written to the city manager to say, here are the allegations, can you please just confirm what is happening here? The city manager wrote to us, or wrote to me. While I was applying my mind, I then said, okay, from what I've seen, there's a good explanation, so I'm okay with what I'm being told. Then more came up. And that's why I then said earlier on, when that more information came up, it then said to me, that needs to be more that needs to be looked into than what I have been given. And this is why we've decided to go further than what we had actually dealt with. So yes, the initial report that I received suggested and said to me that everything was above board because all supporting documents were there. The timeline that had been put in place did match up. But then, once you hear of other things that are coming up, you hear of offices that are being given free of charge, you hear of the raids and all of that. Those are things that are not reported. And as I said, MECO documents are there for you to see what has been given to us. Everybody's allowed to then take copies of what had been reported. So all those things are your operational issues that were never given to us. And once that comes out, then you realize that what I've been given might not be sufficient. And this is why we decided I couldn't suspend the city manager. I then took the decision to go to council and say, council, here's what I have, but these are the allegations. Can we then make sure that we deal with this matter? If council decided then we don't want to deal with it, then I could have said, let's kill it. Because council have decided that there's nothing here to be said or to be done. And then you close it at that particular point in time. That is what the law requires of us, and that's what we have done. Oh, yes. No. Because remember, Dr. Musola had applied, before. Had applied. Whether anybody knew Dr. Musola before that, I don't know. It means to be, it remains a mystery or will remain a mystery forever and a day. What we know is that Dr. Musola was part of the initial applicants for the particular position. The reason why he didn't make the first cut was that, we had, there was the first shortlist that was being done. That was then concluded, and then we decided that let's expand on the scope so that we can then interview more people. That's how Dr. Musola then came in. So I wouldn't say that the EFF had anything to do with his particular appointment because he was not headhunted by anybody. He had applied himself. Anton, can we avert the motion? I don't know if we can. There is communications at a national level on a daily basis. That takes place on a daily basis. When there are issues, when there is discomfort, when any of the mayors or the councillors in any of the coalition government seems to be unhappy with a number of things, that will always be raised at that level. So this is one of those things that had also been raised at that particular level. But as I'm sitting here, the party, has said that we will continue to talk, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in those talks that this motion can be abated, because either way, there's two motions that are going to be put up on Thursday. And as things are standing, the EFF continues to say that their motion will stand. So if that answers you. All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, let's